Chubb, who is retiring, who announced his retirement. I want to give my flowers to Nick Chubb. Then we're going to talk a little bit of the Cavaliers. We'll talk the Peyton Watson trade. What are my thoughts on that? There's some mixed reviews on it, more positive than negative. And then we'll talk about how thin the bench is now. Any other moves that the Cavs can make or will make. And then James Harden signing his contract. What is going on, G? I see ya. Yeah, shout out to my YouTube and shout out to my TikTok. Go ahead and share, like, comment, subscribe, do your thing. All right, hit the hearts, do whatever y'all got to do. All right, and then we're going to talk a little bit of the Cleveland Guardians. They beat the Rockies, and we'll get into that. Travis Bazzana had a great game, and some other things. And then my coach's rant. I know a lot of folks look forward to my coach's rant on 3 the Hard Way, and I'll talk about 3 the Hard Way in a little bit. This guy just continues to irk my nerves, and so I'm going to continue to bring him out. And that's Tony Grossi. And then there's some others out there too. So we'll get into it. So listen, sit back, relax, get your favorite beverage because you are now in the locker room. Listen, the locker room is sponsored by the Virtuous Lens Photography. Okay, the Virtuous Lens Photography is a real estate photographer who just who is out here and will come and take pictures of your place if you're trying to sell. All right. So listen, if you are interested, just contact Coach. You can go to CoachYoung3434@gmail.com and say, hey, I want to talk to the owner of the Virtuous Lens. I know her pretty well. I've known her for a long time. Really, really great photographer. So today's episode of The Locker Room is sponsored by the Virtuous Lens Photography, the real estate photography. All right. All right. So let's get into this. Let's get this thing started. So the Browns had joint practices this week. They played the Chicago Bears last week. And from all reports, everything was pretty well. I mean, the Browns in the game, they lost in the game, but joint practices went pretty well. And so this week, they've actually been practicing against the Buffalo Bills. And so, watching some of the highlights and watching some of the footage, there were some good things when it comes to the Browns, and there's some things that will give me a sense of pause. So let's talk about it a little bit. Okay. So injuries right now are taking place. A couple guys went down. Our starting defensive end, not Jared Versman on the other side, went down. We're pretty thin when it comes to certain positions. We're thin at the defensive end position. We're thin when it comes to the cornerback position. As I saw, if it's not Denzel Ward, that ilk, we really have an issue when it comes to our DBs. So, and I'm not just, and I'll get to the offensive side of the ball. I know that's what everybody's waiting on, is getting to the offensive side of the ball. But my concern right now is the defensive side of the ball right now. Okay. Now I've heard that, Mike Hall Jr. looked well against Buffalo. Mason Graham looked well against Buffalo. But I'm looking at when those guys are not in the game, who's backing them up? Do we have competent backups at these positions? You know what I'm saying? Tyson being the other corner. Who is backing up these positions? So this is my concern. And I know a lot of folks are like, well, you should have traded away Myles Garrett. Listen, I've always been that kind of person that when I look at the Myles Garrett trade in its totality, sometimes I think you can do addition by subtraction. So that's how I really feel, is there was addition by subtraction. And so, and I don't wish any ill will to Myles Garrett. I really don't. But I'm at this juncture. We need to move on. He's with the Rams, and we got Jared Verse, who I think is going to have a double-digit sack year. Okay. One of my biggest things is people believe that the Cleveland Browns are going to be worse off than they were last year. Now, I've heard, some people, and I'll get into this, talking about the quarterback position. As of right now, where it stands, Deshaun Watson is going to be the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. Not because Shedeur has done anything to hurt himself, so to say. There have been some things that I have noticed when it comes to, Shedeur Sanders. Okay. So, you know, I just believe that, Shedeur I won't say he's been painted into a corner, but he's kind of been painted into a corner. Right here on TikTok, Coach G says, what do you think? What do you think will be who do you think will be the new defensive leader since Miles left? And that actually is going to be Jared Verse. Jared Verse has already taken over when it comes to the leadership role on this team. Let's keep it a buck. The Rams did not want to trade Jared Verse. They wanted to connect Jared Verse with Myles Garrett. But Andrew Berry was like, no, if I'm going to give you Myles Garrett and some compensatory picks, you're going to give me your best defensive player, which is Jared Verse. That's why the Rams is really, really working hard, to get Myles Garrett acclimated, to what's going on there in LA. And I haven't heard anything yay or nay about Myles Garrett. Do I think he'll have a 20 sack season this year? No, I don't. I think he'll be close because this is the NFC, and they're gonna he think he got chipped in the AFC. He hasn't seen anything yet. But anyway, when it comes to the quarterback position, great question. Thanks for the question, G. If you got any questions, go ahead and put it in the chat. So for me, I look at it like this when it comes to the quarterback position. I'm not going to say that Shedeur didn't have an opportunity. I'm not going to say that because he's had all the opportunities in the world. All right. And I just think he hasn't taken advantage of it. Okay. Now, that does not mean that that Shedeur Sanders is not going to play this year. I believe he is because I think Deshaun Watson, I've said this on 3 the Hard Way. By the way, if you have not subscribed to 3 the Hard Way, go to the tube called You, type in 3 the Hard Way Sports Talk, and you'll see me. Okay. You'll see my man L Train, and you'll see the captain, Terrence Alston. And we do that every single week. All right. So I don't think Shedeur has done enough. No one can blame anybody but Shedeur. Shedeur, I'm very serious about this, is I don't think he put his best foot forward. I think there's a lot of work that he's doing. I think he's come a long way. But when you're talking about the quarterback position, you're talking about, that premier position, you got to be a dog. And I'm not saying that Shedeur is not, but when you see Shedeur Sanders, he's a very pleasant, happy-go-lucky young man, always positive. We don't know what goes on behind the scenes, but every time I see him, he's very positive, and I get that. But when it comes to being the quarterback of an NFL franchise, your mindset has to be of destruction. Your mindset has to be that I'm the best quarterback, I'm the best running back, I'm the best person out here on this field. And I think Shedeur has shown glimpses, but I also believe because Deshaun Watson is the veteran, I think that unless I'm reading the tea leaves wrong, I think that Todd Monken is going to run with Deshaun Watson. And I've said this before. When it comes to Deshaun Watson, if you're having a youth movement, which if you look at it, that's what the Cleveland Browns are having, is a youth movement. If you're having a youth movement, why are you putting an aging quarterback who hasn't played in 2 years after 2 Achilles tendon injuries? Why would you put him behind center? Okay. Now, don't get me wrong. I trust Todd Monken. Todd Monken is bringing a culture change into Berea. I get it. But that one to me is a head scratcher. Okay. Go with the young quarterback and let him take his knocks. You've given him 7 games last year. Let him go. You have a healthy Quinshawn Junkins. You have a Casey Concepcion, a Denzel Boston. Hopefully, Jerry Jeudy can catch something this year. Harold Fannin Jr. Okay. I think Malachi Corley is going to stand out this year. Isaiah Bond. They have weapons now. Okay. The offensive line is going to gel. The run game does not look well right now, but being a former coach, being a defensive and offensive line coach, you got to give these guys an opportunity to get their cadences down, to gel, to talk to one another, to be in game time situations. So I don't look at the offensive line right now, and I'm not panicking because you just put these guys together. There are 5 new offensive linemen, one of them being a rookie. So you got to give these guys time to gel. Now, should there be improvement from training camp to the first game? Absolutely. It should be. Okay. So I'm not worried about the run game. I'm just like I said, I'm concerned about the defense in terms of the backup. Now, a question that was asked on TikTok here is Jared Verse going to become the face of the franchise? No, not a face of the franchise, but a face of the defense. No, to me, that's Carson Schlesinger. Schlesinger was the defensive rookie of the year, and I just truly believe that he's going to take that step forward. Now, he's dealing with some injuries that he had last year, so he's got to, he's got to get himself back together. But Carson Schlesinger is going to be the face of the defense. Him and Denzel Ward and Jared Verse. Okay, another question: Will Cleveland have a top 10 defense? Yes, they will have a top 10 defense by the end of the year. I'm not going to go out on a limb and say they're going to be top 5, but I do believe they'll be within the top 10 of defenses in the NFL. All right. So, in training camp, there's been some standouts. And 2 of the standouts has been Casey Concepcion and Denzel Boston, who are the rookies there. And it's very great to see. Casey Concepcion against Chicago, he almost ran the kickoff back. He just is, he's at a different speed. Okay. And I've heard they say that Coach Monken is comparing him to kind of like Zay Flowers in Baltimore. I can see it, but he's bigger than Zay Flowers. He's a lot bigger than Zay Flowers. So I like what I see out of Concepcion. I know he had a history of drop passes. They from our reports in training camp, he hasn't dropped any passes. Denzel Boston has been over the top, kind of Randy Moss like. I'm not saying he's Randy Moss, y'all. Calm down. But they've really stood out in training camp. McNeil Warren as safety has stood out. Okay, the rookies are standing out. This is going to be a young football team, but as I said before, this football team, you're not just going to walk into Cleveland and walk over them. Another question asked, will Cleveland make the playoffs? I don't think so this year. I think they'll be close, but I don't think they will just because of their youth. I think just because they're young that they won't make the playoffs, but I think they'll be relatively close. Like I said, you're not going to come into Cleveland and you're not going to just walk over them. I just believe that this year. You're not going to walk over the Cleveland Browns, okay? So, Deshaun Watson, like I said, is the quarterback. I think he's going to end up winning the job unless Todd Monken is just throwing a swerve. I think he's going to win the job. Deshaun Watson is not going to finish the season. I'm telling you that right now. He's not going to finish the season. They have a preseason game tonight against the Buffalo Bills, and he's going to play the third quarter. And I'm going to tell you right now, he's going to get unmercifully booed. I see that already, okay? I see that already. Another question. Who were the Browns? This is from TikTok, y'all. Who are the Browns? Who will be the Browns' biggest rival in the AFC North? Always the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's going to always be the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't get, Baltimore is going to be a close second, but to me, it's always going to be and always will be the Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay. All right, moving on here. So Nick Chubb has announced his retirement from the NFL. Nick Chubb played 9 years, and you know, of course, the last time we saw Nick Chubb in Cleveland, he was coming back from a devastating knee injury, and I don't feel bad for Nick Chubb. I'm just disappointed because Nick Chubb, prior to that cheap shot from Minka Fitzpatrick, I don't care what nobody says. It was, to me, it was a cheap shot. To me, you come up in the hole and you shoot at a guy's knees where you could have just squared up and went straight up with him. You're just as big as he is, but I digress. Um, Nick Chubb was on a Hall of Fame career track. He was. Nick Chubb, other than Derrick Henry, was the most talked about running back in the NFL until he got injured. And so no one picked Nick Chubb up. I know he wanted the Browns. He wanted to, spend that one more year with the Browns. The Browns didn't pick him up, even though I thought that's a mistake. You want to have a professional in that running back room with Deuce Staley, with Quinshon Judkins, with that running back room. I would have loved to have Nicholas Jamal Chubb in that room. But having said that, congratulations to a wonderful career. And he is now, to me, a legendary Brown. He's going to always be a legendary Brown. That's Nick Chubb. That's who Nick Chubb is. He just came in every day. He worked. He didn't complain. He did what he needed to do. His feats of strength was crazy. If you've ever seen Nick Chubb squat a small village, it is the most amazing thing that you've ever seen. So I look forward to what Nick Chubb is going to do next. I'm hoping he stays somewhere connected to the Browns. I hope he stays connected in the NFL. I'm really just looking forward to whatever it is that Nick Chubb is going to do next. So shout out to Nick Chubb. I salute you. Thank you so much for your contributions to the Cleveland Browns and to the NFL and to society altogether, because he's just a wonderful, wonderful individual. From everything that I've heard about Nick Chubb, he is just the nicest guy that you could ever meet. So I look forward to his future endeavors. I look forward to him staying connected and becoming a legend in Cleveland. And so shout out to Nick Chubb. All right. So let's move on. We're going to talk a little bit about the Cleveland Cavaliers. All right. So the Cavs made a trade, and they traded for Peyton Watson. Peyton Watson is a forward, 6'8", long, played with the Denver Nuggets. Averaged when Nikola Jokic was not on the floor, he averaged about 22 a game. He's a 3-and-D wing. Of course, the Cleveland Cavaliers had to give up Max Strus. I heard a lot of folks talk about, well, we didn't want to give up Max Strus. I don't mind giving up Max Strus. Max Strus was an undersized guard. He couldn't guard twos because he wasn't fast enough, and he couldn't guard threes because he's not big enough. Now, don't get me wrong, he could shoot the lights out the ball, but and Max Strus was a big contributor during the Cavaliers' playoff run. But your biggest and glaring weakness was the wing. And when LeBron said, I'm going to Philadelphia, the Cavaliers had to scramble. They had to work to get something here. Now, does Peyton Watson make the Cleveland Cavaliers a contender? Maybe. Okay. They're not, I said it on Three the Hard Way, is that the way that the Cavaliers were constructed, you're looking at 6 in the East. Okay, now you're looking at probably 4th. Okay, if I were to really go through it, because of course you don't disrespect the Eastern Conference. You don't disrespect the Pistons. They won the the conference. Of course, Philadelphia is there. If Toronto gets Kawhi Leonard, you have to talk Toronto. Okay, so there's different. Washington might be in the mix. It depends on if Anthony Davis is healthy and if Trae Young is Trae Young. Question from our TikTok fans: Will Cleveland win 50+ games? Yes, they'll win 50+ games. They'll win 50+ games in their sleep. just by having James Harden, just by having Donovan Mitchell. They're going to win 50 games. Will they reach the Eastern Conference Finals? That's to be seen. Would I love to see them in the Eastern Conference Finals versus Philadelphia? Sure. I think that'd be great TV. That'd be great TV. But the Peyton Watson trade is a good trade. I mean, he's a quality. He's 24 years old, so he's young. And so the Cavs had to make a move, and they had to make a move at the wing position. I like Jalen Tyson. I like the rookie that they got from Arkansas. Of course, we got some young people. Naquan Tomlin is still there. There's a youth movement that took place on the bench, but the bench is thin. There's no real experience that's on the bench. Okay. Not anybody who's like been through the wars that's on the bench, a la Tristan Thompson or Kevin Love. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Bryant is on the bench, and Bryant did go to the finals, but I don't know what kind of leader he is in terms of the bench bunch. So I'm looking forward to seeing, Peyton Watson and his athleticism, because he's real athletic. Like I said, got this stat. I didn't look this up. I heard it from Mikey McNuggets. Shout out to Mikey McNuggets and the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. He talked about Peyton Watson being in the 90 percentile in corner threes. That was something that the Cavaliers struggled with. They struggled with hitting threes in the corner. Dean Wade couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. He couldn't. He was a good defender, but then you have Max Strus, who could hit the three from the corner, but he was a smaller defender. So you kind of went small in the backcourt. So that was your issue. So now you can go James Harden, Donovan Mitchell, you can go Peyton Watson, Jalen Tyson, and Evan Mobley, or Jared Allen. Whichever one of those guys is cooking that night. And then at that point, you got a plethora of mixtures that you can make. Okay. I'm hoping that Naquan Tomlin takes this step. I'm looking forward to Jalen Tyson taking that next step, because I think Jalen Tyson has superstar written all over it. I think the problem is with James Harden is that you're stagnating his offensive ability. Because the young man's not afraid. Okay. And so looking forward to seeing Peyton Watson on this Cavalier team. I know we had an ancillary guy, and I don't think he's going to be there, but he's going to be a Minimoski. He was a part of the deal. So that's why I really didn't mention him. Like I said, Max Strus is gone. I'm not going to miss Max Strus. He's with the Clippers. Him and Darius Garland are back together. And I think it makes now you got a smallish backcourt in Clipperland, and you're out in the West. So that tells you that right there. James Harden did sign, I think it's a 3-year, $97 million deal, or $90 million deal, somewhere in there. He got a lot of money, y'all. All right. The question that I've always been asked, or that I've been asked, is, would you have signed James Harden for so much money? And the answer for me is no, because his third year is a player option. Now, I say that because I would think of other options for me. But it's good because you don't have any other options. And James Harden was patient enough to wait and let the Cavaliers trade for Peyton Watson and, try to make some moves, even look at Kuminga, things of that nature. So I think they kind of rewarded him with that team option. But James Harden is going to be 39 years old when it comes to that team option, and he's going to take it. Let's keep it a buck. He's going to take that option. Okay, I would, So I'm not mad at him if he does that. But now you got James Harden in the contract for the next 3 years. You got some young bulls in terms of Watson, in terms of Mobley. You got Black History, Jared Allen. And so, like I said, Craig Porter Jr., you got some young cats on the bench that can develop. The key to me, and I'm letting everybody know this, is going to be Kenny Atkinson. Kenny Atkinson is going to be the key. Okay? A lot of folks are going to say James Harden, and I understand why you're saying that. I do. Because James Harden is an absolute sieve when it comes to defensive play. He's been that his entire career. Here's the problem with James Harden. James Harden always had the offensive side of the ball to subsidize the fact that he was not a good defender. Now his offense is not the way it used to be. So that makes him look even more deficient on the defensive end. But when I go back to the Eastern Conference Finals, when I go back to the playoffs in the East, period, Kenny Atkinson was outcoached in every single series. Every series. The only reason that the Cavaliers beat Toronto was because Brandon Ingram and their point guard could not stay healthy. That was it. Otherwise, the Cavaliers would have been eliminated in the first round of the playoffs. I believe that wholeheartedly, because the way Scotty Barnes was playing, they couldn't stop Scotty Barnes. Couldn't stop him. And now if the trade goes through, you're talking Scotty Barnes with Kawhi Leonard. You got to talk Toronto a little bit. Now, Toronto's still deficient. I'm not a Jakob Poeltl guy. I'm really not. I'm not a Poeltl guy. I like Emmanuel Quigley, but he's got to stay healthy. And so for me, just the way right now where the Cavs are, I think they still have work. Now, they're kind of limited now because they spent so much money between Watson and James Harden. They spent a lot of money. So we'll see. But Kenny Atkinson is the key. Kenny Atkinson has to be able to coach a lot better. Just keeping it honest. Kenny Atkinson has to be better. This is the year where Kenny Atkinson has to be better. Okay? Or else the Cavaliers will go nowhere. Now, everybody's going to scream Philadelphia. Oh, Philadelphia, yeah, they're going to the final. Everybody slow down. Slow down. Now, I get it. You got LeBron James, you got Jaylen Brown, you got Joel Embiid. I understand. You got them boys there. But the key to the Philadelphia 76ers winning is Joel Embiid. I don't care what Stephen A. Smith says. Well, they don't need Joel Embiid. Shut up. Joel Embiid is a top-tier center. Stop it. You're not going to beat teams in the Western Conference without a top-tier center. That's why LeBron went there. Because he knew he could do something with Embiid. He knew he didn't have to play 82 games with Jaylen Brown there. So stop all that madness, please. Okay? Joel Embiid is the key. If Joel Embiid can stay healthy for 65 games, not 82, he don't need to play all 82, 65. If he can stay healthy and not be injured in 65 games, and from all reports, Joel Embiid is in great shape. Wow. You think he's in great shape? Now that you have Jaylen Brown and LeBron James? Because if you don't come to camp in great shape, guess who's getting traded? Joel Embiid. Shout out to Mike Gansey for putting that team together. They did an outstanding job. Okay? Shout out to Gans. But Joel Embiid is the key to the Philadelphia 76ers winning the East. As I said, the Detroit Pistons, if I'm Cade Cunningham, I'm suing the Detroit Pistons for malpractice. Okay? And because they got nobody. They got nobody for Cade Cunningham. So Detroit is going to run it back? Huh? What sense does that make? All right. Miami got Giannis. Means nothing to me. You just got the same kind of guy as Bam Adebayo. I don't see where, and then your bench is thin. You traded away one of your young centers. So I'm not afraid of anybody in the Eastern Conference. Here's my issue with the Cavaliers. And you listen to commentary from even, Harden and Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. They're mental midgets. I said it right here on the locker room. They're mental midgets. And when I mean mental midgets, it's not a knock on their intelligence. Okay? It's a knock on their go, on their wherewithal, on understanding that you got to be that assassin. You understand? And Donovan Mitchell's a great player, and so is James Harden, and they're great players, but they're not assassins. They're not. Kobe Bean Bryant was an assassin. Michael Jordan was an assassin. Larry Bird was an assassin. Okay? Russell Westbrook, who just retired, shout out to Russell Westbrook, assassin. Easy money sniper, Kevin Durant, assassin. What does that mean? That means in the fourth quarter, ain't nobody else touching the ball. And if you got one person in front of me, that's four guys that you'd have messed up with. Because one person can't guard me in the fourth quarter. So they're mental midgets. I've already gave y'all my opinion on Evan Mobley. I have no idea why Kobe Altman and the Cavaliers are riding Evan Mobley so hard, as if Evan Mobley's going to come out and average 25 and 15. He's not. I keep saying that. What Evan Mobley is who he is. And if you expect more out of Evan Mobley, you've absolutely lost your mind. I don't understand. Jared Allen is a nice guy. You got a bunch of nice guys. Just a ton of nice guys. But you don't have assassins. I need guys on the Cavaliers that when they get into, the Eastern Conference Finals or the playoffs, that they are absolute. I want to see a fight, y'all. Not something physical. I just want to see the fight inside of them. Because New York, the Knicks, the champs, they punked them. And that's what teams do. Okay? That's what teams do. Is they come into Cleveland and they feel like they can punk them. Whether it's the Browns, whether it's the Cavs, it could be the Guardians. The Guardians kind of hold their own though, but you know what I mean? Being from Cleveland, living in Cleveland the majority of my life, then transplanting out here to sunny Phoenix, Arizona, I get to see my hometown team from the backside. And what I mean by that is I'm not there. I don't always listen to the talking heads that are back there in Cleveland, because those talking heads back there in Cleveland are miserable. And I'm going to get to it in my coach's rant when I talk about Tony Grossi. They're just miserable, okay? But what I'm saying is I look at the mentality of my hometown team. And at the end of the day, y'all, it's just sports. And I get it. But I look at the mentality of, guys on the Cavaliers, and I look at the mentality of guys on the Browns when they play. Teams feel that they could come into Cleveland and absolutely count them as a dub. Teams come into Cleveland with the Cavaliers, okay, this is they look at the Cavs sometimes as an off night. So do you think that teams right now are not going to target James Harden because they know that he has difficulty defending? Do you believe that they're just going to say, okay, we won't go at James Harden? They're going to go at James Harden. Okay? Mike Brown during the playoffs, during the Eastern Conference Finals said, we're targeting James Harden. As a coach and a player, that's disrespectful. But there was no response. James Harden didn't respond. That's the problem. I want my players to be in a press conference and say, oh, you going to target me? Okay, if I can't defend your guy, then the next time he come to the hole, I guarantee you he going to be on his backside and at the free throw line. And you're going to be looking at me for a flagrant foul. You're not going to disrespect me. Period. Okay? Hopefully, Donovan Mitchell, because now him and Miss Coco Mitchell are now married, maybe now because all that is out the way, maybe we see a different Donovan Mitchell. Okay? I said Kenny Atkinson is the key, and he is. But if they don't unlock Evan Mobley this year, I'm trading Evan Mobley. I said it. If they don't unlock Evan Mobley, I'm going to trade him right now. Because we have wasted so much time and energy waiting for this guy to become a quote-unquote unicorn. Let's keep everything a buck, y'all, and I'm an honest Cleveland fan. Evan Mobley won Defensive Player of the Year because Victor Wembanyama was out because he had blood clots. He had a medical issue. Because if Victor Wembanyama was healthy, we're not talking Evan Mobley as Defensive Player of the Year. Let's just keep it a buck. And if anybody in Cleveland debates that, I don't understand what the issue is. Because it's true. But people in Cleveland are expecting Evan Mobley to just come out and just double his hiney off. And I don't understand what y'all problem is. Because I've stated on my show, I stated on 3 the Hard Way, I stated it before. Evan Mobley has no offensive game. And what I mean by that is, as the young kids say, he ain't got no bag. Evan Mobley don't have no bag. He don't have a bag with his back to the basket. He's not a consistent enough shooter to have him stand on the outside. What does he have offensively? And then if this is supposed to be your guy, then with 5 seconds left and you down 2, who you giving the ball to? First of all, Jared Allen's not going to be on the floor. Who are you giving the ball to? Are you going to have Evan Mobley post up and give him the ball? No. But you consistently want him to be the franchise guy. I don't see it, okay? But I'm not going to keep harping on Evan Mobley. Everybody knows where I stand when it comes to Evan Mobley. So are there any other moves that the Cavaliers can make? They're going to be very limited because they're out of the not the cap, the luxury tax. They're they got themselves back into the first tier because they were in the second tier of the luxury tax. So Kobe Altman really did a good job in getting them out of that. And they can deal with the first tier. They can deal with that. But I don't see any other moves that the Cavs can make. All right. So we'll keep an eye on the Cleveland Cavaliers. We'll see if they're prepared to make a run not only to the Eastern Conference Finals, but possibly to the NBA Finals. I'll give my predictions when basketball season begins. Moving on. So before I get into the Guardians, once again, I'm Coach Young. This is the locker room. And the locker room is a twofold thing. I talk about Cleveland sports on the Cleveland edition, but I also talk about Arizona high school sports. I get out and I want to showcase a lot of Arizona high school athletes here in the West Valley that I live in. Because out here in the West Valley, they don't really talk about a lot of young athletes, but I want to accentuate those young athletes. So when you go to my page here on the tube called you will see where I've had conversations with some various coaches, conversations with kids, just trying to get them out there. I've been a coach. I was a coach for 20 years, recently retired, but I just want to stay close to the athletes, to the games. And so The locker room is a well vast type of program. Now I come on here on Saturdays at now I'm normally here by 11. I'm a little early today, which that's fine. I got actually some interviews to do today. Going to meet one of the top wrestling coaches in the West Valley. His name is Eric Stevens. Going to sit down and talk with him and talk about his wrestling program. He went in and he has now created one of the top wrestling programs here in the West Valley. And I'm going to have an opportunity to sit down and chit chat with him today in the coach's corner. And that's what Coach Young is all about. Coach Young is all about sports. He's all about high school sports, just pushing out that athlete. And listen, and I'll say this, it's not just about the D1 athlete. That's not what Coach Young, don't get me wrong, I love the D1 athletes, love them. But I want the athletes that work behind the scenes that no one is paying attention to. That may not be D1, D2. They may not even be D3 or NAIA, but they're out there working their butts off. Those are the kids that I want to talk to. And I also, because everybody knows that I've coached 3 different sports in 20 plus years, basketball, football, and baseball. But my focus is not just those 3. My focus is not just those 3 sports. I want to talk to the swimmers. I want to talk to the badminton players. I want to talk to the soccer players. Okay. Cheer, which is a sport. I want to talk to those young people and get those young people and showcase those young people. So if you are not a member of the locker room, whether you are here in sunny Phoenix, Arizona, or whether you are in Cleveland, Ohio, or any surrounding areas, go ahead, type in the locker room with Coach Young or the locker room.34 and go ahead and subscribe, like, comment, and I absolutely positively dare you to share. Share the locker room, okay? So I just felt the need to have to come and explain what the locker room is all about, because right now it is really, really growing. And I really enjoy being able to talk to young athletes, talk to great coaches, because coaches don't get all the recognition they deserve. When you see a coach on TV, it's because either they A, have won a state championship, or B, they've done something wrong. And there are coaches who don't win state championships who are effective. Okay. And I believe in accentuating those coaches. I was a defensive line coach for a lot of years. And defensive line and offensive line coaches and offensive coordinators, and they don't get the publicity, and they don't get the push that they deserve. And so that's what the locker room is all about. We're not going to just showcase great athletes. We're going to showcase great coaches. And that's where I created the Coach's Corner, so that coaches can be accentuated. All right. So, like I said, if you have not subscribed to the locker room, go ahead and like, comment, subscribe. Go to the locker room.34, or you can type in the locker room with Coach Young. You will see the symbol just over my shoulder. Okay, that's right behind me, and you'll know that you're in the right place. All right. And listen, my mindset is I'm always about the smoke. I don't have no problem with it, but everybody is welcome in the locker room. Okay. All right. Once again, let's get into this. Let's get into the Cleveland Guardians. So the Guardians just beat the Rockies yesterday. They beat them 9-1. And Travis Bazzana had a outstanding game. He was 4 for 4. Stephen Kwan is now getting out of the schneid. He's had the beginning of his season was absolutely terrible, but he's starting to get out of it. I'm hoping Jose Ramirez catches fire. Right now, the Guardians are treading water, and that's all they need to do right now. Now, in the next month or so, they really need to start heating some things up. I told you I love the Guardians pitching. Cantillo pitched very well yesterday. I love the big rig. The only pitcher that I'm still trying to embrace is Tanner Bybee, because to me, Tanner Bybee gives up too many long balls. Question, isn't it almost playoff season in baseball? Yeah, it's close. So we need the Guardians to kind of like heat up. We need them to start heating up. Like I said, I think they have enough pitching with Parker Messick And those guys, I think they have enough pitching to go against anybody in the American League. Okay. I just hope that they can get the bats together because they gotta score runs. If the Guardians make the playoffs, they got to be able to score runs. I believe with this pitching staff, okay, with closer Cade Smith, if the Guardians can get you 3 to 4 runs, they're gonna beat anybody. With the pitching that they have constructed right now, they will beat anybody. Okay, like I said, Stephen Kwan is improving. They did get some bats at the trade deadline that are coming through right now. I'm really looking forward to this push by the Guardians. I think it's coming. Okay. And like I said, they've won the first 2 against the Rockies. I think they have another one. I'm not sure if it's today or not, but the Rockies are not that great of a team. So that's fine. You beat up on them, but I need you to start beating teams that are better because the San Diego Padres came in and just pounded them. And so I need the Guardians to get the bats together. They're not hitting like they should. Okay. You know, Brian Rocchio is doing very well. I love Brian Rocchio. Like I said, Bazana, not the greatest fielding second baseman, but the kid can rake. Okay. You know, and so there's other players, but I really am looking forward to this playoff push by the guards. Stephen Voigt has done a great job in manning the ship, even through injuries. He's done a really good job. And so I'm looking forward to this playoff push, you know, from the Guardians. And so I think they play the Rockies tonight. Don't quote me on that. Go ahead and check your local listings. And we'll hope that they maybe can sweep the series. So, you know, that's that. All right. All right, guys. One last moment before I go into my coach's rant. And I want you guys to understand that I'm very passionate about my teams. I'm very passionate about the Browns. I'm passionate about the Guards. I'm passionate about the Cavaliers. I go all the way back to when we had a Major League Soccer team by the name of the Cleveland Force. Okay, they used to play out in Northfield Park. Northfield had an indoor facility over by the racetrack, and the Cleveland Force used to practice right there. My favorite soccer player, which I wasn't a soccer guy, but I just loved his name. His name was Kai Hoskevy. I'm dating myself, but that's how deep I'm into Cleveland sports. The Cleveland Rockers with Lynette Woodard. Okay, I go back. I'm deep into Cleveland sports. Okay, and so when I get ready with this coach's rant, I need y'all to understand that I'm very passionate. And like I said, being out here in Arizona, I've had an opportunity to watch the Cleveland sports media, and I've seen why athletes do not stay in Cleveland because our sports media is the most bitter, goalpost moving, changing of the narrative type of people, and they try to justify it you know, when it comes to Cleveland media. So I'm going to start with Tony Grossi. They call him the General of the 100 Years War. And they call him the General of the 100 Years War because his takes are about 100 years old. Tony Grossi, to me, is at this point one of the leading aficionados of incompetent reporting that I've ever seen. Because he comes out one moment and says one thing and then changes the narrative to fit whatever it is whatever he wants to put out. Case in point, Tony Grossi is the one that started this absolutely asinine and ignorant sports quarterback tracker that ESPN Cleveland uses. Okay, because it got popular because people just want to be close to the Browns. So whatever you have that's Browns content, they want it. So Tony Grossi found it and took it upon himself to create a quarterback tracker, which I said on previous shows is the dumbest thing in creation because you're trying to track 7-on-7, not 11-on-11, but 7-on-7. Or how about one-on-ones, DBs and wide receivers, and he's tracking that. Just absolutely stupid. And I hate using that word, but it is. It's stupid. He comes back, I think after the joint practice with the Bills, and he talked about Shedeur Sanders not throwing a touchdown. And people kind of came back at him and said, well, wait a minute. He threw a couple touchdowns, and then he tried to change the narrative. Now, G. Bush, shout out to G. Bush. Shout out to, G. Bush and what he does. He tries to, he calls it moving the goalpost. And a lot of these sports media guys do that. They move the goalposts. Tony Grossi moves the goalposts. Mary Kay Cabot moves the goalposts. Adam the Bull moves the goalposts. Jay Crawford, who I'm so disappointed in because I've loved Jay Crawford for a lot of years, but he moves the goalposts. Okay? I'm tired of these guys moving the goalposts. I'm tired of Cleveland media, sports media, moving the goalposts to try to fit their narrative. Now, because it's possible that Deshaun Watson is going to be the quarterback, you got a lot of guys that's taking victory laps. And Tony Grossi's one of them, taking a victory lap, okay? Trying to kick a guy when he's down, okay? Mary Kay, she been wishy-washy, okay? But now, just taking a victory lap, okay? Jason Lloyd is so smug. He's trying to, they're taking victory laps. Of course, and even if they see this, I'm for all the smoke because I'm one of those guys, like I said, shout out to G. Bush in the barbershop. I have receipts. I sit back and I watch these clowns talk, and I know, let me say this. They talk on the radio because 92.3 The Fan is just as egregious. They talk on TV. And I understand you have to talk about something. And I understand you don't have to agree with each other. And that talk show banter, I mean, I get it. I watched First Take. I watched First Take when it was Cold Pizza, Jay Crawford. I watched it, okay, with you and Dana Jacobson. I watched it. So I understand that banter back and forth. But if you're going to banter back and forth, at least make it sound intelligent. Okay? At least make it sound intelligent. I'm sick and tired of the Cleveland sports media running athletes out of Cleveland. And they'll come back and say, well, wait a minute. What is he talking about running athletes out of Cleveland? Okay. Talk to some of the athletes that played in Cleveland. Listen to some of the commentary during these press conferences that the sports media ask. Just listen. And then the funny thing about it is they sit up and they talk about, well, that was a great question. The hell it was. It was stupid. Somebody, I look at Todd Monken, and Todd Monken tries so hard not to cuss these reporters out. Shedeur Sanders came up one time and was like, we just waiting on y'all to come in and join us. We trying to be unified. That's not what the Cleveland sports media in totality, that's not what they want. They want division. They need something to write. And that's why, for me, the Cleveland sports media is the most miserable media in Northeastern Ohio. They're miserable. They want to report misery. That's what they do. And I say the sports media. Now, there are a couple people that are really, like I said, I didn't shout out G. Bush, Earl the Pearl, Mikey McNuggets, okay, Cameron Justice. They're out there. There are some people who are reporting that are out there. They hate Garrett Bush. You want to know why they hate Garrett Bush? Because Garrett Bush does not push their narrative. Garrett Bush comes back, and so does Earl the Pearl. And I love Tyvis Powell, but Tyvis Powell is more Switzerland. He goes where the wind goes. And no disrespect, go Bucks. He doing what he got to do. But this old guard in Cleveland, okay, and I know that some people think I forgot this guy, Aaron Goldhammer. Oh my goodness, Aaron Goldhammer. When Tony Rizzo is not on that show, is not on the Really Big Show, I don't listen to the Really Big Show. You want to know why? Because Aaron Goldhammer has just as ridiculous takes as Tony Grossi. Just absolutely ridiculous. And people get this narrative because of what happened with Ryan Clark, talking to Peter Schrager and basically saying Peter Schrager, because he didn't play the game, he doesn't really know the nuances of the game. And everybody made a big uproar about it. Let me tell you something. He was right. I'm tired of people who've not played the game, who's not been involved in the game, who's not sat down and wrote a game plan, who's not sat with a player and told a player why they can't start, or tell a player why he is starting or why she is starting, who hasn't gone through the ups and the downs, the trials and the tribulations of being in a major sport. Stop talking to me, because you don't know. You can make an educated guess, you can assume, but as my mama always said, assumptions will make an ass of you. So when you got guys who've been in the trenches, who've been there, who's talking about what's going on there, shut the hell up and listen. Because if I hear Adam the Bull screaming another time with an asinine point, and I'm not saying everything that Adam the Bull says is crazy, but there are times where there is some things that he says that's out of pocket, and he feels like if he raises his octave that it makes his point. No, it's still a goofy point. You just yelling. Okay? And all my takes, like I said, is not personal. Tony Grossi is goofy. I'm sorry. That might be deemed as personal. Emmett Golden sometimes is very goofy. Okay? Just the takes, not the person, because I don't know the person. But they're goofy. Okay? And like I said, shout out to Adam the Bull. You look great though. That's personal. I love Adam the Bull. He's looking good. Okay. And I appreciate it when somebody's taking control of their health. Okay. I segue with that. But I'm talking about y'all takes. I need y'all to stop with y'all takes. Well, not stop, but I need y'all to really think about what you guys are talking about. And like I said, if you just trying to entertain the people, then just say that. Okay. And that is my coach's rant. All right, guys, I got to get out of here. I got to go up the road. Like I said, I'm going to meet one of the best wrestling coaches in the West Valley out here in Arizona. I'll get a privilege to sit down and talk with him and chit chat with him. Listen, once again, if you have not subscribed to The Locker Room, go to the tube called You and go ahead and type in The Locker Room .34. And also, you can type in The Locker Room with Coach Young, and it will come up. If you have any questions that you want me to answer on air, go to CoachYoung3434 at gmail.com. Send me your questions. I'll read them on air, even if it's about me. If it's negative, I don't mind. It don't matter, because I'm for all the smoke. I don't have no problem with it. Okay? And so I will see you guys next week. Hopefully, I'll be back at my regularly scheduled time, which is 11 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. But if not, I'll pop in and I'll let you guys know what time I'm going to be on. Okay? And so enjoy your day. Make your day. Don't let your day make you. And love on somebody. Tell somebody that you love them. Don't always assume that they know. I'll see you later.